Good afternoon and good evening for everyone. Today is 9th February and we are doing our regular leads meeting. And today it's an open forum. And you can understand why, because we're talking about money laundering. Money laundering means just like going to the laundry, you clean up, you cleaning money. So you basically it's about how people clean illicit money as legitimate money. So that's what we are going to talk about. Topic today is money laundering, and it could be in any currency, and it's a very complex subject. And I don't think we'll get the experts in money laundering to talk. So it's general people we have to talk and then understand its effects on us, means the ordinary citizens, and then how to prevent it. So basically, so we'll talk about this money laundering, what we know, and also I would like your contributions as well for this. So we can say it is the process where criminals hide the origins of their illegally gained money. So the laundering process is to hide the origin of all this money. So that's what it is. So it's a very wide, complex, evolving subject. But let's try to see what we can understand. Furthermore, we are having our meetings every second week, but we will be having an extraordinary meeting in relation to International Women's Day next Sunday. So, what is money laundering? Money laundering, it is the legal process of making large amounts of money generated by criminal activities such as drug trafficking, corruption, fraud, and more, I'll show you, appear legitimate. The goal is to disguise the original illicit source of the money so that it can be used without raising suspicion. Culprits are usually criminals, including terrorist organizations. So that tells you a little bit about why we need to be aware of this. So let's take our normal people. Say, for example, you have some money, you earn it from somewhere, and then you go to the shop and you buy something. And you spend that money, it goes to the shop owner. But in that process, 20% or so, maybe VAT, maybe income tax, go to the government. So out of the 100 rupees I spent, for example, 80 will retain with this person. Now he will want, if it's a shop, want to go and buy the raw materials, etc. And she will spend that money to buy some raw materials. And even when she spend that money, again, some tax will go, maybe 20% or so, to the government. So the money flows from hand to hand, hand to hand. And every time you spend it, some money of that proportion legitimately should go to the government as taxes. So the government gets the money, and that's the one that maintains public services and so on. So it's a very important process. This has to be legitimate because every one of you here will benefit from the public services that the government provided. So, so let's take an example. There is another individual who has got loads of money. Now, he doesn't want to pay that money or any taxes to the government. He wants to utilize it all and make it legitimate into this process of money. So he will put something, but he doesn't want to take any of that and get this money into the system. There'll be other people as well, not just one, several will be trying various ways to include their large amounts of money that they have, obtained maybe illegally, and want to legitimize it. So they want to put it to this system. So let's see. Now this person thinks about, now how can I legitimize the money that I earn illegally? So he'll think about it. Say, I'll show you one example, and then what there are many ways of people doing this. And here's one example. Then he thinks, oh, it's a good idea. I'll go and take a very large loan from the bank. Now we know, we have seen reports of very large loans being cancelled by various state banks recently. And then you can see why this may have happened in the past. So you get a bank loan, and the bank loan is legitimate money. So because you got a loan and you got a lot of legitimate money. So now to repay in installment, you don't use any of this money, but use the illegitimate money to repay the bank loan in installment. So slowly, all your illegitimate money becomes legitimate. Now, one method. So this is why the money laundering process needs to be understood. In generally, it's called, there's a three main things that people talk about. It's the placement. That means illicit funds are first introduced into the financial system, often by breaking them down into smaller amounts to avoid detection. Then we have layering, which means you make a very complex process of money being moved to here and there. So it's very difficult to trace where it came from. Then the integration finally comes. That means the laundered money is integrated into the legitimate economy. Now, will that have any effect? Some might say we are getting the money into our system. But it's not really so. So let's listen a little bit to this one.
Money laundering is the process by which the proceeds of crime are washed through the financial system. By cleaning the money, the origin of the money is given the appearance of legitimacy. The money typically originates from activities such as tax evasion, fraud, theft, organized crime, and drug trafficking. The act of concealing, transferring, or converting the proceeds of crime is just as much a criminal offense as the illegal activities behind the funds. Any person benefiting from the funds, knowing or suspecting that the funds are criminal in origin, is liable to prosecution. The process of laundering money can be broken down into 3 stages, each of which could include numerous financial transactions. The first stage is the placement of the cash proceeds of criminal activity into the financial system. Common methods of placement include aborted transactions and smurfing. In an aborted transaction, someone makes a payment, usually in cash, then cancels it and receives a refund into a bank account that they control. In this way, they have placed the cash into the financial system. To avoid suspicion, large deposits of criminal funds are often broken down into smaller amounts and deposited as a series of seemingly unrelated cash deposits or through bank drafts. This is smurfing. With cuckoo smurfing, criminal funds are transferred through the accounts of unwitting persons. The second stage is the layering of multiple financial transactions to obscure the audit trail and to distance the money from its source. This can involve the international movement of funds and/or complex ownership structures that disguise the identity of ultimate beneficiaries. The third stage is the integrating of the money with other legitimate funds to give all the funds the appearance of legitimacy. This can include the purchase of businesses or properties, in addition to luxury items such as artworks, jewelry, and high-end cars. The disposal of such items can then be officially recorded, with the resultant funds looking as clean as other legitimate funds.
So you can see how complex this process is. And there was an article also about 2.5 weeks ago in the island talking about money laundering. I thought it was a very good effort. Someone is trying to inform the public the relevance of attacking or controlling money laundering cycles. And that is very important aspect. And in fact, I contacted the author of this article and invited him to join as well. He may have come. We'll see how it goes. So he mentioned many other things as well on top of what I have been just talking, like use of shell companies. Shell company is a company, is only the shell from outside. There's nothing inside. They use it to launder various kinds of money. Say, for example, I can tell this is something that I knew. Certain things were imported from Japan. Now, the Japan sends an invoice from a Japanese company. Now, this Japanese company is set up by these launderers in Japan. So they will send, say, for example, I want to import some spare parts for a car or something like that. And then they will say, okay, $300 each or something. And then they'll send an invoice from Japan. But what they do is, from Japan, they arrange these to be transported to Sri Lanka from, say, for example, Ukraine. So they will buy it for whole cost will be $100. So the thing comes into Sri Lanka just for $100, but for us, we see it as $300, and we pay all that money to this shell company because, and we think the thing the what we imported came from Japan, but it is not. So this is how certain shell companies operate. But Sri Lanka had been a victim of such companies, including there was a major inquiry and even went on the ABC News in Australia, a company called Aspen Medical. And that's been laundering money in this way and false statements, etc. So we need to know this kind of thing happens. Then trade-based money laundering is criminals manipulate trade transactions by over and under invoicing. Now, if you over invoice something and then buy it, we as a nation pay a lot of money for something that is of not that value. And one example was that we have been told and also learned in the public media about how this kind of things may have happened in our own electricity corporation. Then cryptocurrency is another issue. With the rise of digital currencies, it's all kind of covered up. And cryptocurrency has a method of not disclosing who owns the money. So because of that, now you can move the currencies digitally, and it's very difficult to trace where it came from and where it's going. So cryptocurrency, then real estate laundering. This is something that you heard in the video as well. Say we go and buy, for example, I'm a criminal and I go and buy real estate that is very valuable, like jewelry or something like that, or a big kind of a house in Colombo or something like that. We buy it. And you buy it and then you overinflate the price. And as you sell it, say, for example, twice the amount you bought it for, and that is you overinflate it. You don't really sell it back for that. But when you overinflate it, the amount of money that you get, now you have an opening to put all your illicit money into that, saying you earned it by soiling this particular jewelry or this property. So again, another method of laundering. Then casino laundering. Now, casinos, we know port city is mainly going to be casinos, and then what might happen is something that the government needs to be aware of. Say, money launderers may use casinos to launder funds. They could gamble with illicit funds, easy, and then win and cash out when it's clean. So when they win and get the money, it's clean money. So that is another way the casinos might be supporting laundering. Then terrorist financing is not exactly money laundering, but that's also considered as money laundering for this purpose. So money laundering is an illegal activity that makes large amounts of money generated by criminal activity appear to be legitimate at the end of the day. So how can this money laundering affect developing countries? This is our concern. So this is why we are discussing this. So when there's money laundering, it can destabilize the financial sector. And we saw very well in 2022 what happened to us. There's loss of trust in the bank. So you can't take any loans, you can't do anything. Financial institutions become really into difficult situation. We've seen this already. Increases corruption. So when there's money laundering, the criminals can do more and more of this. So the criminals are involved in bribing officials, politicians, law enforcement officers, and so on. So this hampers economic development investment, and we have seen it in real life in our own country. Then distorts investment. Now, when there's money laundering, real investors don't want to come. So the prices of various things might inflate prices, distorted markets with public money wasted due to misallocation of resources. So the public money is now used to attack, or because of this distortion of currencies, the public money is getting wasted to prevent them, and so on and so on. So it's another waste for actual nation. Then hinders foreign investment, you know the reasons. So because these money launderers don't pay the taxes, it weakens the government's revenue. So that means the public services get affected because there's no income. Then encouraged illicit trade and organized crime. So when there's opening, when they know that this is possible, you get various kinds of trafficking, etc., taking place for laundering purposes, because it's easy, because the anti-money laundering uh, uh, things don't happen. So what will happen to us ordinary citizens when there's money laundering in the country? So we higher cost of living. Now we have seen this already. Your cost of living goes up because the people who have this illicit money can easily compete and pay double the amount to buy anything. So that it inflates the property prices, the cost of goods and services, making life more expensive for regular people. Then also it weakens economy. It undermines financial institutions and economic stability, leading to lower investor confidence, reduced job opportunities, and so on. And we've seen this already. We have seen this already, how bad it becomes to the normal people. Increased crime rates. No wonder we have seen this even today. These days also we still hear about various gangs involved in various crimes, and rivalry gangs killing each other and so on. So that's again organized crime, corruption, fraud. So again, what happens to prevent those things? National money or public money has to be wasted. Higher taxes. The government lose significant revenue from these because of this laundering. And then what happens? The normal people have to pay higher taxes. That is what's going to happen. Then risk to saving and insurance. So if you have any investments and savings, if the banks go bankrupt or they can't pay, and then you will lose all your savings and so on. So as ordinary people, you have issues. So here is President AKD talking before his election, and I took that it was an important message. Just listen very carefully. I hope you will hear it.
අපි 2007 දී තමයි ජාත්‍යන්තර සූරි බැඳුම් කරගන්න ගියේ. අපි 2007 ඉඳන් 2020 වෙනකොට අවුරුදු 13ක් අපි ආරම්භ තිබුණා සූරි බැඳුම් කර ඩොලර් බිලියන 15මාර. මේ ඩොලර් බිලියන 15මාරෙන් ඩොලර් බිලියන 12ක් කරගත්ත රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ 2015 19. එතකොට කෑෂ් මේ ඇවිල්ලා ව්‍යාපෘති ණය නෙවෙයි. මේ මුදල් ලෙසම කෑෂ් ලෙසම ගත්ත අපි ඩොලර් බිලියන 12ක් ISP වලින්. සම්බන්ධට වරාය විකුණන ඩොලර් බිලියන 11.1ක් මේ 21.1ක් ගත්තා. එනේ මේ ඔක්කොම එකතු කරලා ඩොලර් බිලියන 13.1ක් කෑෂ් වලින් ගත්තා. අවුරුදු 4මාරක. දැන් අපිට කියනවා IMF එකෙන් ඩොලර් බිලියන 2.9ක් දෙන මාස 48කට අවුරුදු 4කට ඒකෙන් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන කියලා රනිල් එක්ක. ඩොලර් බිලියන 13.1ක් අවුරුදු 4මාරක් අතර නැති කරපු මිනිස්සු දෙකමාරෙන් හදයිද? අද අපේ රටේ ණය අර්බුදේ විදේශ ණය අර්බුදේ විශාලම පංගුව තිබෙන්නේ ISB අර්බුදේ. ජාත්‍යන්තර සූරි බැඳුම් කර විකුණලා දක්වා අර්බුදේ. අපිට රාජපක්ෂවලට ගොඩක් විවිධන තියෙනවා. හැබැයි 2007 ඉඳන් 2015 දක්වා ඔහුගේ අවුරුදු 8 කාලය තුළට ජාත්‍යන්තර සූරි බැඳුම් කර අරන් තිබෙන ඩොලර් බිලියන 3.5යි. විවෘත වෙළඳපොළට කියලා ඩොලර් බිලියන 12ක් ගත්තා. හම්බන්තොට වරාය විකුණලා ඩොලර් බිලියන 1.1ක් ගත්තා. ඒ අවුරුදු 4මාරට ඇස් ඉදිරිපිට අපිට කෑෂ් මුදල් දේශ අරන් තියලා ඩොලර් බිලියන 13.1 ISB විදියට සෝරි බැඳිම් කර විදියට. ඒකයි හම්බන්තොට වරාය විකුණලා හම්බන්තොට වරාය විකුණන්නේ ණය ගෙවන්න බෑ කියලානේ. හැබැයි හම්බන්තොට වරාය විකුණලා ණය ගෙව්වේ නෑ. ඒක වියදම් කරගත්තා. ණය තියෙනවා. හරිද? ඒ අලුත් ව්‍යාපෘතියක වරාය එන්න කලින් අපිට මුදකුත් තිබ්බා. අක්කර 4000ක භූමියකුත් තිබුණා. මොකද්ද වරායක් හදන්න ලොකේෂන් එකකුත් තිබුණා. දැන් අපිට මුදල තියෙන්නේ. දැන් අපිට වරායක් නැහැ. එතන අක්කර 4000ක භූමියකුත් නැහැ. අපිට ණයක් තියෙනවා ඒක. ඔන්න මේ පරිපාලනය දන්න හරිද ආර්ථික විද්‍යාඥයන්ගේ ආරත ගෙනාවු තැන. අපේ අද ණය.
So now you can see how difficult it is. Now, this kind of activity can also come into money laundering because what has happened to all this is unclear. So let's go to prevention. I'm not going to talk a lot about prevention, but I'll invite people to join if possible to elaborate on that in a paper article or something like that, so that the ways how to prevent has to be highlighted. Now, the prevention, the banks should take lead in that because they must be vigilant for unusual cash deposits or withdrawal, rapid movement of funds, multiple accounts with similar names, and so on. And if they're suspicious, they must have a mechanism to further investigate or submit their query to, there is a financial intelligence unit in Sri Lanka who can explore these. And there is a Financial Transaction Reporting Act that is in place as well. So the banks have a leading role in trying to find these. So to do that, you need anti-money laundering or AML regulations that detect and prevent money laundering activities. Money laundering involves usually using several steps to conceal illegal activities. This is why you need all these regulations. And the businesses are required to be aware of money laundering regulations and understand their responsibilities when it comes to detecting money laundering activities. Now, if certain people don't look at this, then you can get fined. These are not very huge fines, but you can see that Union Bank of Colombo has been fined for not failing to meet customer due diligence rules. DFCC Bank has been fined. Bank of China has been fined in Sri Lanka recently. And MCGB Bank, Pakistan, has been fined as well in 2024. So even our own banks are not really following these regulations. So now that is something that needs to be implemented. So prevention has got lots of things to be done. I'm not really going to go into that because I will allow you all to speak about this. But I think if you are writing something, we should put all these things into a write-up and explain it in very simple language so anyone will understand what it really means. So who are the culprits? So the criminals are there as culprits. Fund and profit from illicit activities such as arms sales, narcotics, human trafficking, contraband smuggling, embezzlement, insider trading, bribery, fraud schemes. So there are lots of activities that will come under this brand of criminality and money laundering. I will show you a little bit more about that. And then there'll be professional money launderers looking at weaknesses in the system and then exploiting it. I'll also show you some similar example. Now, here are various activities that can be offensive and also be involved in money laundering. So there are lots of activities in here. So there's a little video discussing that as well. I'll show that to you.
Variety of serious offences, from fraud to illegal poaching and human trafficking. But what is money laundering? The United Nations defines money laundering as the processing of criminal proceeds to disguise their illegal origin. Laundered money comes from illicit activities known as predicate offences, including tax crime, human trafficking, murder, cybercrime, insider trading, and environmental crime. Funds are laundered in 3 stages to appear legitimate. 1. Placement. Dirty money is introduced into the financial system, often broken into smaller pieces and distributed into different accounts. 2. Layering. A complex series of transactions obscure its origin. 3. Integration. The money is reintegrated into the financial system, often through investments or falsified loans or payroll. successfully laundered money can then be used as if it were legitimate. So, how can firms stay ahead of evolving financial crime?
So that's what it is. Sometimes people might use vulnerable situations to exploit. Say, for example, now we had, as a developing country, we had restrictions, remember, the amount of money that you can take. For example, when I first traveled to UK in many years ago, you were allowed only to take 500 pounds. 500 pounds. Now, 200, 300 of that was required for registration fees and insurance fees just to enter a job. So you had just left with just about 200 to live for a month or two or three, so that you get into this process. So it was hard living as well, because you have nowhere else to get the money. Now some people might get into this kind of situation. So what people might try to do is to pay someone locally and then get it in cash in the other country. Now that is something might do. Similarly, students who are traveling for education and so on might be doing that. So here I say someone is a money launderer. In a way, he will sell money so that he'll give it the other way. They will do it this way as well. They will do the other way as well. So there are people who are there, and you will all know that if you want some cash, you can buy it outside the government. So when the government has put extreme restrictions, these people prosper. So here that is something that the government needs to be careful about, not to pressurize too much so that the black market or these launderers can prosper. Now, here is one example. Luxury cars. Say luxury cars from the West cannot go to Russia because that's restricted. But still, these kind of things are brought through the landlines, and they bribe various entry points and then take the vehicles into Russia. Now, Sri Lanka, we have a situation where also now very high taxes for luxury vehicles. For example, we think it prevents people bringing in very expensive vehicles to the country. But on the other hand, it gives an opening for people to smuggle. So this has happened in the past. We have reports of how people had various special vehicles under disguise and different registrations, etc. So this has happened. So this kind of taxing at the very beginning can make things worse. Whereas if you allow them to bring it and then tax it every year for their use, that might be a better way to handle the situation. So anyway, so something that you need to be aware of. So today's meeting is about really your opinion. So I'm going to stop here and let you tell us what you think about this and how to go about raising the public awareness on this, and maybe even the government more aware of this. Thank you very much.